Do you know there was once a ship found drifting in the middle of the Atlantic, fully intact with breakfast still on the table, but every soul on board had vanished without a trace? That ship was the Mary Celeste, and her story is one of the most haunting mysteries in maritime history. The Mary Celeste was no cursed galleon or pirate ghost ship, at least, not in the beginning. She was built in Nova Scotia in 1861, a merchant brigantine made for honest trade. 103 feet of oak and pine meant to outlast tempests and time. For over a decade, she sailed without note through storms, across continents, just another vessel moving goods across the endless sea. But fate doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes, it begins in quiet normalcy, a voyage that should have meant nothing. It was November 5, 1872, when Captain Benjamin Briggs, a man known for discipline and deep faith, prepared to set sail from New York Harbor. At his side was his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, a rare sight on a merchant vessel. Briggs had chosen his crew carefully, 7 experienced sailors, trustworthy men. Their ship carried 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol, bound for Genoa, Italy. The weather was fair, the ship newly refitted, and every rope and beam gleamed with purpose. Sarah wrote to her mother the night before they sailed, "Our vessel is in beautiful trim, and I feel sure the voyage will be a pleasant one." The Mary Celeste left port the next morning, sails full, the city shrinking into fog, and sailed into history. For the first days, everything was peaceful. The Mary Celeste moved easily across the Atlantic. The crew worked smoothly, the captain logged his course with precision. The sea was calm, the winds friendly. Briggs wrote his last known entry on November 25th, near the Azores. 5 a.m. wind fresh, fair. Made the island of St. Mary's bearing east. Everything well. Those were the final words anyone would ever read from him. After that, silence. 9 days later, another ship, the Dei Grazia, crossed her path. Her captain, David Morehouse, was an old friend of Briggs. Through his spyglass, he spotted a brigantine about 6 miles away, drifting strangely. Her sails were half raised and torn, but her hull rode steady. The flag read Mary Celeste. Morehouse frowned. The ship was off course. She shouldn't have been there. He called for his mate. "She's drifting, no signals, no course. Something's wrong." They hailed her. No reply. The sea was too calm for wreckage, too still for panic. Yet she moved, slowly, as if guided by invisible hands. A boarding party was sent. 2 sailors rowed across the waves, their oars cutting through the glassy water. As they approached, the ship loomed over them, ghostly quiet, her timbers creaking in rhythm with the sea. They climbed aboard. No one greeted them. No footsteps, no shouts, no cries of ahoy. Only the soft flap of canvas and the eerie sound of wind through the rigging. The deck was empty. They called for the captain, nothing. For the crew, silence. The lifeboat was gone, its ropes cut clean. Below deck, the air was thick, damp, musty, and faintly sour with the smell of spilled alcohol. But everything was normal. The galley was orderly. A meal half prepared sat untouched. The crew's clothes hung neatly in their quarters. The logbook lay open on the desk, the handwriting calm, the last entry 10 days old. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage, no theft. The cargo was intact, though a few barrels had leaked slightly. One of the men later said it felt like stepping into a place where time had stopped mid-breath. In the captain's cabin, they found Sarah Briggs's belongings, her sewing machine, her jewelry box, a child's toy on the bed. The air was still. The bedding was neatly folded. It looked as though the family had just gone out for a walk and never returned. The ship's pumps showed signs of recent use. Perhaps they'd taken on some water during a squall, but she wasn't sinking. There was no reason to abandon her. And yet, every soul was gone. Captain Morehouse decided to salvage the vessel. He ordered a small crew to sail the Mary Celeste alongside his own ship, the Dei Grazia, back to Gibraltar. But as the days passed, the men began to whisper. At night, lanterns swung on the empty deck, and the sound of footsteps echoed faintly where no one stood. The sea was black and still, and the Mary Celeste, lit by pale moonlight, seemed to follow them like a phantom shadow. Sailors said they could hear faint laughter, a woman's voice, a child crying, carried across the waves. None dared speak above a whisper. When they finally reached Gibraltar on December 13, 1872, the news spread like fire. A ship has been found, with no one on board. British authorities immediately launched an investigation. They found the same eerie scene. Provisions untouched, charts correct, the hull seaworthy. No struggle, no clues, just absence. The official report called it a mystery without parallel in maritime history. Theories spread like plague. Mutiny, pirates, explosion, alcohol fumes, seaquakes, something not of this world. Some whispered that Captain Briggs had gone mad, that he led his family and crew into the sea in a fit of delusion. Others said they were taken by storms, by something unseen, by the deep itself. But nothing explained how a ship so sound, so intact, could be found utterly deserted in the heart of the Atlantic. The Mary Celeste was released from inquiry weeks later, but she never escaped her legend. Sailors refused to serve aboard her. Those who did spoke of strange noises, of bad luck, of cursed voyages that ended in disaster. She became a name whispered by seamen, a reminder that the sea keeps its secrets, and that sometimes the waves return what they've taken, but never the same. On quiet nights, some claimed to see her still, drifting through the fog off the Azores, her sails pale in the moonlight, her wheel creaking gently as though guided by unseen hands. A ship without a crew, a vessel without a soul, a name that still lingers like a ghost on the ocean's breath, Mary Celeste. When the Mary Celeste arrived in Gibraltar, she looked almost alive, her sails mended, her masts proud, but her silence screamed louder than cannon fire. The harbor crews stood still as she docked, whispering under their breath. A ship found adrift, seaworthy and stocked, yet stripped of every human life. It wasn't something they could explain. Not in 1872. Not now. The British authorities launched a full investigation. The Dei Grazia's captain, David Morehouse, and his men were questioned for weeks. Every log was examined, every nail inspected. At first, officials suspected foul play. After all, salvaging an abandoned ship was worth a fortune. Maybe Morehouse had killed the Mary Celeste crew and made up the story. But that theory fell apart fast. The Dei Grazia was smaller, slower, and hundreds of miles behind when the Mary Celeste went missing. If they'd done it, they would have needed wings. Then came the strange discoveries. The cargo hold, nearly full of industrial alcohol, had 9 barrels that were partially empty. The wood on those barrels was porous red oak, unlike the rest. The fumes, investigators said, might have escaped, filling the lower deck with a toxic vapor. Had Captain Briggs feared an explosion? If so, he might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat temporarily, to wait for the fumes to clear. But if the rope tethering them to the ship snapped, or if a wave pulled them away, they'd have been lost within minutes. It made sense. It fit the facts. But something about it still felt off. Why hadn't they taken their navigational tools? Or water? Or food? Why would a man as meticulous as Briggs, a captain known for caution, abandon a perfectly good ship in calm weather? Other theories surfaced, each wilder than the last. Mutiny, some said. The crew killed Briggs and fled. But there was no blood, no signs of struggle, no valuables missing. Pirates, others claimed. But the ship's cargo, valuable alcohol, was untouched. Seaquake, a sudden underwater tremor that scared the crew into thinking the ship was sinking. Or something else. Something not of this world. The more people talked, the stranger the story became. One newspaper claimed the Mary Celeste had been found floating with blood on the deck and a sword embedded in the railing. Lies that grew with every retelling. Others said the ship had been cursed from the start. A vessel christened Amazon, renamed Mary Celeste after a fire and a string of bad luck. A ship that refused to die quietly. The Gibraltar inquiry eventually cleared Morehouse and his men. They were awarded a salvage payment, but only 1/5 of what they deserved. The court said there was suspicion surrounding the case, but no proof. So the Mary Celeste was released back into the sea. But she was never the same. Over the next decade, she sailed under new captains, each met with misfortune. One fell overboard. Another went mad. Another wrecked her on the coast of Haiti under mysterious circumstances. Sailors swore the ship was haunted. They said when the moon was high and the sea calm, you could hear footsteps on her deck and the faint sound of a child laughing, carried through the wind. By 1885, her final captain deliberately ran her aground, hoping to collect insurance money. But even in death, the Mary Celeste refused to vanish completely. Her bones, rotting timbers, and splintered hull were swallowed by the waves near Haiti, where the sea finally claimed her. Still, the story didn't end there. The legend of the Mary Celeste began to spread through London papers, American journals, dockside taverns. Writers filled in the blanks with fear and imagination. One of them was a young Arthur Conan Doyle, years before Sherlock Holmes, who wrote a fictionalized version of the story called J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement. His version told of a curse, of African magic, of phantom voices. People read it as truth. The myth was born. From then on, the Mary Celeste wasn't just a ship. She was a ghost, a symbol of the sea's cruelty and its secrets. Historians still debate it. Maybe the fumes drove them out. Maybe the captain made a tragic miscalculation. Maybe a storm scattered them before they could return. But every explanation falls short. Because the real mystery isn't just how they vanished. It's that nothing on the Mary Celeste felt like panic. No overturned chairs. No chaos. Just absence. As if the people aboard had simply stepped into thin air. Over a century later, divers claim to have found her remains, but the ocean gives little away. Time has erased her hull, her masts, her name, but not her legend. She remains a riddle drifting in the imagination of sailors and storytellers alike. The Mary Celeste was built by human hands, but she died as something else entirely. A whisper in maritime history, a question the waves refused to answer. And so, her story ends as it began, on an empty deck, wind sighing through the rigging, the wheel creaking gently as though guided by ghosts. If you listen closely, you might still hear it, the faint echo of footsteps across wet planks, somewhere beyond the fog. The ship that came home without her crew. The voyage that never truly ended. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Also, do well to check out other videos on this channel. Thank you.